white to move, white has a dangerous pawn on d7. Both rooks are active and black's pieces are tied down. But there is one big problem. Black's knight is attacking white's queen. Most players would move the queen and try to keep everything under control. But Spassky finds something much stronger. He plays a move that allows Petrosian to take his queen. At first, the idea looks impossible. But the real problem was not the queen. Keep this position in mind. We'll come back to it in a few minutes. Now, let's go back to move 1 and see how this pressure was built. Hello everyone, welcome back to Queen Sacrifice Legends, episode 21. I'm Aniket, an Arena International Master. Today's game is Boris Spassky versus Tigran Petrosian, played in Moscow in 1969 during Game 5 of the World Championship match. Spassky was one of the most complete players of his time, strong in attack, strategy, and practical play. Petrosian was known as one of the greatest defensive players in chess history, famous for his prophylaxis and exchange sacrifices. This is what makes this game so special. Spassky does not beat Petrosian with a direct mating attack. He beats him with pressure, activity, and a pass pawn that becomes impossible to stop. If you enjoy classical attacking games and queen sacrifices, subscribe. Now let's start from move 1. The game begins with c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6, knight f3, d5, striking in the center, d4, c5. This becomes a queen's gambit structure, especially a semi-Tarrasch type position. After cd5, knight d5, e4, knight takes c3, bc3, cd4, cd4, we already see the main imbalance. White gets a strong center and more space. Black challenges the center and tries to create activity against white's pawns. Then black plays bishop before check, bishop d2, b takes d2, queen takes d2. Black exchanges a bishop and simplifies a little. But white still has the central space. After castling bishop c4, just putting more and more pieces in the central squares, knight c6, just developing the pieces, castle. b6, the plan is bishop b7, rook ad1, simply developing bishop b7, rook fe1, and now rook c8. Both sides have completed development. White's rooks are already coming to the center. The rook on d1 supports the d pawn, the rook on e1 supports the e file. And this is important because later white's central pawn will become the main hero of the game. This is the first critical moment. Let's pause the video here and try to find the best move for white. Now, Spassky plays pawn d5. This is the first important decision. White does not just sit and defend the center, he pushes forward. And the lesson here is whenever you have the great center and you know you can make a pass pawn, you definitely should make a pass pawn. Black continues with ed5, and now white should continue with e takes d5, but for some reason, Spassky takes with bishop. And now his bishop gets a central square and keeps pressure in the center. Black replies with knight a5. Black just wants white to take on b7 so that he can take and then he can put the knight on c5 and black will be having a very comfortable position. But Spassky continues the game with queen f4. He does not want to trade the queens. And at the same time, the queen becomes active. It looks like white is just creating pressure. But there is already a deeper idea. White wants to keep black tied to the king side and the center at the same time. And in some of the variations, white is also threatening to take on f7 and then take the queen. So black simply moved the queen and played queen c7 and now queen f5. Spassky does not want to trade the queens. And in this position, Petrosian should continue the game with h6. And he is just fine. Nothing major is happening. But unfortunately, he played bishop takes d5. This is a serious mistake. Black removes the bishop, but after ed5, white gets protected pass pawn. And this pawn is just not a small advantage. This pawn will become the main attacking piece. Now the game continues with queen c2. Petrosian again wants to trade the queens. And at the same time, he's putting a pressure on a2. But Spassky does not want to trade a queen because he got a pass pawn and he knows he is better. So he simply moves the queen on queen f4 and now queen takes a2. Petrosian grabs a pawn. Normally, taking material with the queen is a good thing. But here, black's queen moves away from the defense. Meanwhile, Spassky got some extra moves just at the cost of a2 pawn, which was doing nothing. So Spassky continued the game with b6. Now the pass pawn is already dangerous. Black plays rook cd8, stopping the pass pawn, but now d7. Now the pawn reaches the 7th rank. This is the key. Pass pawn on the 7th rank is often worth more than material because it forces the opponent's pieces into passive defense. Black plays queen c4, just moving the queen back and try to stop the pawn somehow. And at the same time, he wants to trade the queen. But now queen to f5, just protecting the pawn and making some more threats. So h6 and now rook c1. White brings another rook into the attack. The idea is very simple. White wants to invade on the c file. Black replies with queen a6, stopping rook c8, but now rook c7. Now white's rook enters the 7th rank too. So white has two major threats. Pass pawn on d7 and the rook activity on the 7th rank. And what was the cost? The cost was a2 pawn, which was doing nothing. And here Petrosian should continue the game with knight b3. And the idea is very simple. He can go back on c5 and maybe at some point he can capture on d7. But unfortunately, black played b5. This gives white a huge chance. The defensive try was to bring the knight closer, but in the game, black tries to create queenside counterplay. And here, Spassky should continue the game with rook e8. Such a delicate move. And you might be thinking he can capture the pawn and the rook. But no. If you try to capture this rook with rook e8, there's a d takes e8 queen check, rook takes e8, and now queen takes f7. And after king h8, there's a checkmate on g7. So that simply means after rook e8, the rook cannot be captured. And now black would be having a difficult time to protect this position. But unfortunately, after b5, Boris did not find the right idea and he blundered the game and played knight d4. And now he still has some advantage, but he has to work hard for his meal. But even great games are not perfect games. And that is important to understand. Chess is not about playing engine perfect moves every time. It is about creating problems your opponent cannot solve over the board. Trosian now misses the chance and plays queen b6. And now Spassky gets his chance back. And this time he did not miss it. And the move was rook c8. This is a powerful move. White puts the rook directly in front of black's defense. And if rook takes, then pawn can take and make a queen, and this queen is protecting on c8. Don't forget the x-ray. And ideally, whatever black does, it is not sufficient to save the game. But he tried knight b7, just protecting on d8. And now Spassky finds a move that prepares the final queen sacrifice. And the move was knight c6. This is a beautiful move. The knight jumps into the attack and suddenly black's rook on d8 is trapped. Black plays knight d6, just forking the queen and the rook at the same time. So we reach the final critical position. Most players would move the queen here, but Spassky has calculated deeper. If you're serious about improving and want structured training instead of just solving random puzzles, I've worked with students personally. The link to train with me is in the description. So let's pause the video here. It's white to move, find the queen sacrifice. Queen on f5 is attacked by the knight. Most players would simply move the queen away and continue the game. But Spassky plays knight takes d8. This is the move. White does not move the queen. He captures the rook on d8. And now Petrosian takes the queen. So knight takes f5. So black has won white's queen. But there is a huge problem. White's pass pawn on d7 is still alive. The rook on c8 is active. The knight can move away and the d pawn is ready to promote. And now Spassky plays knight c6 and Petrosian resigns. Why? Because black cannot stop d8 queen. Pawn is just one square away from promotion. White's rook on c8 controls important squares. White's pieces are still active, and black's queen is too far away to stop everything. So even though black has captured the queen, white is winning because the passed pawn will become a new queen. This is the beauty of the combination. Spassky did not notice the queen for checkmate. He sacrificed the queen because promotion was stronger than material. If we try to play even a normal move like knight d6, we immediately lost. After rook takes f8 check, king takes f8, d8, making a queen, queen takes, knight takes, and he got the extra rook, which is completely winning. And any other move will not save black to not lose the game. So that was Boris Spassky versus Tigran Petrosian played in the 1969 World Championship match. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe for the next Queen Sacrifice legend and comment below, would you have found knight takes d8 in this position? I will see you in the next one.